So, if someone were to ask me, what is the meaning of life in a long term perspective? A broad question with many meanings, I think, is simply to be a teacher. One of the earliest things that we were taught when we were young applies in every single classroom, every grade level, every university, workplace, household, behind a camera, advertising, show, and tell. We are all doing it, and often the wrong things without even realizing it. Be a teacher to yourself to be a teacher for others of doing the right things, what you consider to be of the utmost importance, and not be so committed to believing that you always have it right. Nothing worldly is of perfection. Of course, we know in the span of growing up, many things are important. As I'm speaking this over, anything can be corrected. I'm sure an English teacher somewhere is internally writing red X's on how I organize my words, word choice, grammar, etc. But to be a teacher, acting your own of what you know, what you were shown and what you were told, or decide to learn in order to help sustain the centuries of generations ahead of after the fact that you've already died. We have an entire world to run. With that, imagine if all transportation of foods, products going to your grocery stores, restaurants just stopped being delivered. Everyone would panic, right? Greed and anger becomes a factor of what is currently available. Or think about without medical professionals who have studied the anatomy and functions of the human body abruptly became absent. People in critical conditions would obviously die, right? Think of the evolution of ideas that have transcended to what we have now, corrected thousands of times over from hundreds of years ago. A horse and carriage, steam locomotive, an ethical source of transportation in its time, the 18th century, 200 years ago. 1914, 100 years later, aeronautics, the first commercial airline. So sifting through all the complications of what is, of our time, regarded as complicated in the future, into pure simplicity. Google says, hey, don't waste time going to the library. I'm right here on your phone. Not hooked up to a landline next to a phone book. What's a phone book, the kids say. The kids won't ask, how does the screen know that I'm touching the screen? Or how do telecommunications work? How do radio televised signals from towers know where to go? Is it literal black magic in the air? Kids are curious and may dare to ask, but not as interested as their Nintendo Switch used as a parental tactic to keep your little ones busy and focused on the stimulating flashing lights. Sadly, often the same for adults. You just want what it can do for you, not how it works. The want for simplicity is human, just as the act of orchestrated chaos to get there is human. I'd love to see a modern version of Nikola Tesla's lab striving to build perpetual energy, or the manufacturing of a new invention that will alter life into something simpler. Not so much like smartphones where we are addicted, inverted outside of what used to be our primal connection to human life. To teach acting in the now, knowing what you do now is a reflection of what happens tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, next decade. Passing on of an idea you learned, developed into something better carried out by someone else. Because what we learn over many years is going to do exactly that, inevitably. There is a consistent evidence of a better way. We may not remember everything, even though we are considered to have an estimated 10 to 100 terabytes of brain storage, according to neuroscientists, while they also speculate 2.5 petabytes, 1,000 terabytes, or 1,000,000 gigabytes. It's no wonder we have so much anxiety, we can't even think straight. We have so much going on with 86 billion neurons, having a synaptic firing rate of 1 hertz to 200 hertz per neuron. I think it's safe to say that we are on overload from emotionally stimulated entertainment. And I spoke amongst this before where it's being a teacher, whether you are directly teaching or just being in the eyes view of somebody in the acts of what you're doing is so important, especially from a child's point of view. Because a child is going to look at a particular adult as an authority and see that adult knows an exceptional amount of knowledge. A child is going to take that knowledge into his life and use it as building blocks for the rest of their being from their point of view, labeling you as an example to be, whether you are directly or indirectly acting or teaching, also much into the account of their own personal interest. Show and tell. What is important? What do you believe your destiny is to be in this life? Whether you know you always have your kindergarten first grade assignment where you were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a policeman because he gets all the bad guys. I want to be a nurse like my mom so I can take care of all the sick and old people. I want to be a fireman because they put out fires and save the people. Or I want to be a mechanic, construction worker because that's what my dad does and they fix stuff. What you also should have been asked is, what are you willing to do to get there? And how, in the long-term question, why? Is it in pursuing of an impression, striving to be a spotlight, to be admirable? Is it in the interest of how much money you will make? Sometimes maybe even guilted upon by your parents because if you don't proceed by their own expectations, they'll disown you. You know, we've been given the technology to be an influence on TV, social media, all these screens that have been manufactured time and time again, as the US media and entertainment is one of the largest industries in the global market. All the useless glitz and glamour of what is shiny, the merchandise, gotta have this, gotta have that, all the eye candy, but where's the eye of vegetables that's supposed to make your mind healthy and healthy for the future? Continuing within the repetitive motions of your everyday life, you believe everything around you is normal because you see it every day. Because to a certain extent they all work, they make sense. You know, when you go outside and see a big machine with wheels on it, you know it's a car. You know, once you turn the ignition, it's going to make you drive. Or even think about the odd idea of communication itself. We transfer thought up words learned from other people talking. We mimic and instinctively develop this system to take those thoughts, tell our lungs to expel the air into our voice through our mouths, just as I am right now. To get back on track, what I am trying to say is everyone is responsible for teaching anyone anything, with or without intention. Your toddler, has your toddler ever said a bad word not knowing what it meant? I sure did. The ongoing ripple effect of time, we are all teachers. We may not get paid for it in some respects, but we are all teachers. A sociological influence to anybody we interact with, so I say be careful of how you use that power, because others will use it against you to their advantage or against somebody else. Sometimes even your higher powers are wrong. Be mindful of who you trust, and with that, do enough research. But it's so hard because there is a plethora of information out there that we have a hard time understanding what is and what isn't, what's true and what's not. As the Bible says, lean not on your own understanding. We shouldn't have to be afraid to question because someone thinks you're stupid for asking, or you should have known already. You may be an expert on how to do taxes, yet I know there's a lot of people, including myself, that don't know how to correctly do it without having paid a tax professional to do it for you. So many electronic devices on the market, but how many people know how to build a computer or camera from scratch? So don't be a person that has the knowledge belittle someone who doesn't. Because you are potentially showing and telling that person it's not worth the effort. It's not worth the effort of learning. Why wouldn't you take it as a compliment that someone asked you or showed you a different way?